أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب من شر النفاثات في العقد من شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب من شر النفاثات في العقد من شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي أن يحضرون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدعو مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. سلام على نوح في العالمين إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسبح الشرك والشرك من تعرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه ويكافئ مزيدا. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا بسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم به ورسوله. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. 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 اللهم إني أسألك من فجاءة الخير وأعوذ بك من فجاءة الشر. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش العظيم. ما شاء الله كان وما لم يشاء لم يكن ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر كل دابة أنت آخذ بناصيتها إن ربي على صراط مستقيم. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث من عذابك أستجير. اصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي ولا إلى أحد من خلقك طرفة عين. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من جبن البخل وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم إني أسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في ديني ودنياي وأهلي ومالي. اللهم استر عوراتي وأمن رواتي. اللهم احفظني من بين يدي ومن خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي وأعوذ بعظمتك أن أغتال من تحتي. اللهم أنت خلقتني وأنت تهديني وأنت تطعمني وأنت تسقيني وأنت تميتني وأنت تحييني وأنت على كل شيء قدير. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا بك نحيا وبك نموت وعليك نتوكل وإليك النشور. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركته وهداه. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما فيه وخير ما قبله وخير ما بعده. وأعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم شر ما فيه وشر ما قبله وشر ما بعده. اللهم ما أصبح بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك فلك الحمد ولك الشكر على ذلك. سبحان الله بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله بحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله عدد ما خلق السماء سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. سبحان الله عدد ما بين ذلك. سبحان الله عدد ما هو خالق. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في السماء. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الحمد لله عدد ما بين ذلك. الحمد لله عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما بين ذلك. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما هو خالق. الله أكبر وعدد ما خلق في السماء. الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في الأرض. الله أكبر عدد ما بين ذلك. الله أكبر عدد ما هو خالق. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في السماء. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في الأرض. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما بين ذلك. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله. صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله. صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله. صلاة وسلام دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ياسين والقرآن الحكيم إنك لمن المرسلين على صراط مستقيم. تنزيل العزيز الرحيم لتنذر قوما ما أنذر آباؤهم فهم غافلون. لقد حق القول على أكثرهم فهم لا يؤمنون. إنا جعلنا في أعناقهم أغلالا فهي إلى الأذقان فهم مقمحون. وجعلنا من بين أيديهم سدا ومن خلفهم سدا فأغشيناهم فهم لا يبصرون. وسواء عليهم أأنذرتهم أم لم تنذرهم لا يؤمنون. إنما تنذر من اتبع الذكر وخشي الرحمن بالغيب فبشره بمغفرة وأجر كريم. إنا نحن نحيي الموتى ونكتب ما قدموا وآثارهم وكل شيء أحصيناه في إمام مبين. واضرب لهم مثلا أصحاب القرية إذ جاءها المرسلون إذ أرسلنا إليهم اثنين فكذبوهما فعززنا بثالث فقالوا إنا إليكم مرسلون. قالوا ما أنتم إلا بشر مثلنا وما أنزل الرحمن من شيء إن أنتم إلا تكذبون. قالوا ربنا يعلم إنا إليكم لمرسلون وما علينا إلا البلاغ المبين. قالوا إنا تطيرنا بكم لئن لم تنتهوا لنرجمنكم وليمسنكم منا عذاب أليم. قالوا طائركم معكم أئن ذكرتم بل أنتم قوم مسرفون. وجاء من أقصى المدينة رجل يسعى قال يا قوم اتبعوا المرسلين اتبعوا من لا يسألكم أجرا وهم مهتدون. وما لي لا أعبد الذي فطرني وإليه ترجعون. أتخذ من دونه آلهة يريدن الرحمن بضر لا تغني عني شفاعتهم شيئا ولا ينقذون. إني إذا لفي ضلال مبين. إني آمنت بربكم فاسمعون. قيل ادخل الجنة قال يا ليت قومي يعلمون بما غفر لي ربي وجعلني من المكرمين. وما أنزلنا على قومه من بعده من جند من السماء وما كنا منزلين إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم خامدون. يا حسرة على العباد ما يأتيهم من رسول إلا كانوا به يستهزئون ألم يروا كم أهلكنا قبلهم من القرون أنهم إليهم لا يرجعون وإن كل لما جميع لدينا محضرون وآية لهم الأرض الميتة أحييناها وأخرجنا منها حبا فمنه يأكلون وجعلنا فيها جنات من نخيل وأعناب وفجرنا فيها من العيون ليأكلوا من ثمره وما عملته أيديهم فلا يشكرون سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض من أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون وآية لهم الليل نسلخ منه النهار فإذا هم مظلمون والشمس تجري لمستقر لها ذلك تقدير العزيز العليم والقمر قدرناه منازل حتى عاد كالعرجون القديم لا الشمس ينبغي لها أن تدرك القمر ولا الليل السابق النهار وكل في فلك يسبحون وآية لهم أنا حملنا ذريتهم في الفلك المشحون وخلقنا لهم من مثله ما يركبون وإن نشأ نغرقهم فلا صريخ لهم ولا هم ينقذون إلا رحمة منا ومتاعا إلى حين وإذا قيل لهم اتقوا ما بين أيديكم وما خلفكم لعلكم ترحمون وما تأتيهم من آية من آيات ربهم إلا كانوا عنها معرضين وإذا قيل لهم أنفقوا مما رزقكم الله قال الذين كفروا للذين آمنوا أنطعم من لو يشاء الله أطعمه إن أنتم إلا في ضلال مبين ويقولون متى هذا الوعد إن كنتم صادقين ما ينظرون إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا تأخذهم وهم يخصمون فلا يستطيعون توصية ولا إلى أهلهم يرجعون ونفخ في السور فإذا هم من الأجداث إلى ربهم ينسلون قالوا يا ويلنا من بعثنا من مرقدنا هذا ما وعد الرحمن وصدق المرسلون إن كانت إلا صيحة واحدة فإذا هم جميع لدينا محضرون فاليوم لا تظلم نفس شيئا ولا تجزون إلا ما كنتم تعملون إن أصحاب الجنة اليوم في شغل فاكهون هم وأزواجهم في ظلال على الأرائك متكئون لهم فيها فاكهة ولهم ما يدعون سلام قولا من رب رحيم سلام قولا من رب رحيم سلام قولا من رب رحيم وامتازوا اليوم أيها المجرمون ألم أعهد إليكم يا بني آدم ألا تعبدوا الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين وأن اعبدوني هذا صراط مستقيم ولقد أضل منكم جبلا كثيرا أفلم تكونوا تعقلون هذه جهنم التي كنتم توعدون اصلوها اليوم بما كنتم تكفرون اليوم نختم على أفواههم وتكلمنا أيديهم وتشهد أرجلهم بما كانوا يكسبون ولو نشاء لطمسنا على أعينهم فاستبقوا الصراط فأنا يبصرون ولو نشاء لمسخناهم على مكانتهم فما استطاعوا مضيا ولا يرجعون ومن نعمره نركسه في الخلق أفلا يعقلون وما علمناه الشعر ما ينبغي له إن هو إلا ذكر وقرآن مبين ينذر من كان حيا ويحق القول على الكافرين أولم يروا أنا خلقنا لهم مما عملت أيدينا أنعاما فهم لها مالكون وذللناها لهم فمنها ركوبهم ومنها يأكلون ولهم فيها منافع ومشارب أفلا يشكرون واتخذوا من دون الله آلهة لعلهم ينصرون لا يستطيعون نصرهم وهم لهم جند محضرون فلا يحزنك قولهم إنا نعلم ما يسرون وما يعلنون أولم يرى الإنسان أنا خلقناه من نطفة فإذا هو قصيم مبين وضرب لنا مثلا ونسي خلقه قال من يحيي العظام وهي رميم قل يحييها الذي أنشأها أول مرة وبكل خلق عليم الذي جعل لكم من الشجر الأخضر نارا فإذا أنتم منه توقدون وليس الذي خلق السماوات والأرض بقادر على أن يخلق مثلهم بلى وهو الخلاق العليم إنما أمره إذا أراد شيئا أن يقول له كن فيكون سبحان الذي بيده ملكوت كل شيء وإليه ترجعون آمنت بالله صدق الله مولانا العظيم. اللهم إنا نستحفظك ونستودعك أدياننا وأبداننا وأنفسنا وأهلنا وأموالنا وكل شيء أعطيتنا. اللهم اجعلنا وإياهم في كنفك وأمانك من كل شيطان مريد وجبار عنيد وذي بغي وذي حسد ومن شر كل ذي شر إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم جمنا بالعافية والسلامة وحققنا بالتقوى والاستقامة وأعدنا من موجبات الندامة إنك سميع الدعاء. اللهم اغفر لنا ولوالدينا وأولادنا ومشايخنا وإخواننا في الدين وأصحابنا لمن أحبنا فيك ولمن أحسن إلينا والمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات يا رب العالمين. وصل اللهم على عبدك ورسولك سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وارزقنا كمال المتابعة له ظاهرا وباطنا في عافية وسلامة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome everybody to our final Fajr in the month of Ramadan, which is always a very bittersweet ending. It's sweet in the sense that we finished it. In other words, we set out what we planned to do, and alhamdulillah did it, and it grew, and we had some shahadas this month, believe it or not, and some people fasting, trying to fast for the first time. We told them that if you're not a Muslim, all you're going to do is going to experience hunger, because the Muslims, when they fast, it's not just that they're fasting and then they're going to break their fast. They're receiving the rida of Allah, and that's the big difference. And someone who is not a Muslim says, "Oh, let me fast with you," just to see how it feels. You're only going to get the superficial elements, that your lips are pale, that your brain isn't working as fast as it is in the morning time, at least. We got this caffeine. Uh, so we have this. All they're going to experience is the hunger element of things. But a Muslim experiences the rida of Allah upon him while he's fasting, and that's the big difference. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that يَضَعُ شَهْوَتَهُ مِنْ أَجْلِي. He leaves off his shahwa from my sake. So this is what we have here. On one hand, it's simply completing the month is an achievement. And also you look back, and when you look back, some of the sweetest moments of a person is the time when they were really lost and dive into the kingdom of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through our dua in him. And it's as if you dived into him and took a deep dive, and were standing in front of the arsh of Allah for all those times, because that's what you should have mentally. Is it's as if I'm in front of the arsh of Allah, and spilling out all my needs. And in the taraweeh, that you're doing that the entire salah, and you're doing that in the qiyam, and then you're doing that in the tahajjud during suhoor. So, but then of course there's the sad part of it is that the community doing this together, it carries us. And now, we shouldn't. Some people say, "Oh, there's some Ramadan blues afterwards." The doors of heaven are still open. We still have Laylat al-Jum'ah. We still have Sa'at al-Ijaba on Yawm al-Jum'ah hidden somewhere. So we still have those days we have to take the opportunity and still be in that divine kingdom. Every last third of the night, every night, the last third of the night is a time for Ijabat al-Dawah. So the nearness, inshallah, will also be in a different way, because when we're fasting, nobody's expecting a certain element of the work in terms of dawah that it no longer gets done at Ramadan. Everyone takes a break. Well, after Ramadan, there will be that work can resume. That type of work can resume, and those type of activities that would not have been usually customarily done in the month of Ramadan. Well, now they can resume, and hopefully, I think this month may have broken a lot of people out of the fear of returning. based upon the lockdown and COVID-19, because we just got into the habit of it. We just got into the habit of going to masajid and just wear your mask and go about your business. So one of the wisdoms of this month is, it's something that I don't think anyone ever thought of, but there was the lockdown, but there's the reconnection. And this month, I think you got a lot of people here. We did it. Nobody died. All right. We reconnected. We prayed Tarawih. A lot of people were at Tarawih. A lot of people were in the masajid. Nobody died. Nothing happened. So any of that fear and anxiety, I think, has been smashed. And some people have a lot of caution. They're really worried about this virus. But here we did it. And it should be accelerated for the Muslim community now, this reconnection and re-entrance into these public spaces. So that's one of the wisdoms that I don't think any of us ever thought of, but it happened. Alhamdulillah. So one thing that a person's got to realize is that the opportunities of growth, when you try to do something difficult / impossible, are far greater than when you just try to do something predictable. And the reason I say this is that everybody tries to bring out what is it that they're thinking about in this month. It's a month of dua constantly. You're in sujood all the time. Now, of the things that we're shooting for in life, there are things that are more possible, seemingly more possible than others. If you restrict and you filter what you envision for yourself by your own practicality and what's practical and pragmatic to you, you've limited and narrowed it down so much. Right? But if you're going by Allah's power, then you can go real big. You can go big if you're doing it by Allah's power. And when there's something where it seems so impossible that it'll take a miracle, oftentimes those things actually may end up happening more so than the stuff that you feel that the road is of cause and effect is open, the asbab, that the asbab is open, go take it. Because when something seems as out of our control, but we're going for it, we have to rely 100% on Allah Ta'ala. But if the causes and the asbab are there for us to take, we oftentimes rely upon that mistakenly and very much less on the dua side. So they end up not always succeeding. So the key here is that now that we've really thought a lot about what is it that we want out of life, and what are we turning to when we open our palms up? Everyone's turning to something, some 2, 3, 4, 5 things. Now that you know that, if you can hold that dua now until Hajj season, until Yom Arafah, which is the greatest sunnah day in terms of fasting, if you can hold on to it and persist in asking it, and then seek out the last third of the night, seek out the Sa'ah of Friday, and then at any time, and Allah Ta'ala loves the ilham in the dua, which means that using different types of prayers, using different type of prayers, and constantly finding different things to say, that's called ilham in dua. You're mulham. This is one of the signs of ijabah, is that a person just keeps going from one dua to the next and learning this technique, and it strengthens your chances to receive your answer, which is the ijabah. That strengthens a person's dua. That's called al-ilham fi dua. And it's one of the signs that that the dua is going to be answered. And the consistency is another sign that dua is going to be answered. So hold it. You held it on for the entire month of Ramadan. Well, I'm going to keep holding it until now. My target's Dhul Hijjah, which is only 70 days away. You got all of Shawwal, all of Dhul Qi'dah, and then we have 9 days of Dhul Hijjah. That's 69 days, and then Eid is on the 70th day. So and then of course Shawwal and Dhul Qiyada may or may not be 30 days. There might be both 29 days, or one of them 30 and the other 29. So either 59 or 58 or 60 days. But that's what it's about. It's about holding it, being persistent upon it. It's one of the great signs of ijabat ad-da'wah. So that's my message for everyone today. It's a very simple message that we want to still realize that the doors of heaven are not closing up on us. And we have to remember, قُلْ مَا يَعْبَأُ بِكُمْ رَبِّي لَوْلَا دُعَاؤُكُمْ. Say, my Lord would have spent no effort on you, no energy. Well, astaghfirullah, effort's not a good word. As long as it's spent energy. He would have paid you no heed. That's the correct answer. He would have paid you no heed if it wasn't for your dua. So anytime that we find ourselves getting dry on the subject matter of dua and like we're sort of like not interested, just remember that. And remember, Allah says the default of prayer is an answer, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Ud'uni astajib lakum." So that's the default. Everything else is the exception. The default is call on me, I'll answer you. Don't forget, Laylatul Eid is a big night in terms of one of the sacred nights of the year. Laylatul Eid, which is basically tomorrow night. You want to at least catch some tahajjud at that time and open your palms up into the air and know that Allah Ta'ala never returns them empty-handed. You will be happy if you're asking for something that was difficult, that was bad for you. Allah will change your heart. You won't want it anymore. He'll show you something about it, so you'll have a change of heart, or he'll create a darkness and a constriction every time you ask for it. You'll feel like it's not good for me. All right, so let's take, and by the way, it's just a matter of scheduling. We're going to schedule this. It may make sure you subscribe to NBIC's channel and Safina Sai's channel, and you're getting notifications for each, because we're going to see now what is the best time to have this. I don't know if it'll be every day. It could be, but it could also be less than every day. So let's open up the live chat and see what we got going on here. All right, what do we have first? G Spice, Surfraz, some of the brothers and sisters that are pretty consistent in these gatherings. Nafis, Suhaib, Double A, Aisha Raouf, Imran Mukhtar, Diana, Samreen, mashallah. Yeah, alhamdulillah. Earlier in the day, we had the we had the khitam yesterday, the khitam of the afternoon recitations that we do. Don't know. Aisha Raouf, alhamdulillah. It's nice to hear those comments. All right, let's take our first question. The Quranic recitation style. Quranic recitation style, everyone sort of ends up with a different mix, and you never know how it got there. But there's a reciter whom I like. Many people don't like him because he has a scratchy voice, and his name is Muhammad al-Kalbani. Muhammad al-Kalbani. Now, Muhammad al-Kalbani has a very interesting story. When Barack Obama was elected president in 2008, we have, kings and rulers, no offense, but they're really, not that bright, to be honest with you. The king of Saudi Arabia, the day after Barack Obama was elected president, said, "Oh, America has a black president. I want a black qari in the haram. We don't have any black imams in the Kaaba." All right, it's a wonderful sentiment in the sense, but Number one, it's triggered by the Americans electing their president. That's a weird trigger because the analogy doesn't fit, because the analogy is not president to reciter. It would be president to king, right? Oh, they have a black president. Let's have a black king, not a black reciter. So they literally opened their Rolodex and they scoured and they just literally found the senior most person who had some blackness to his skin because he was mixed. He's an Arab, but he's mixed. Some Arabs are mixed with Eastern African from the time of the Prophet ﷺ. The East Africans and the Arabs mixed. And this was Muhammad al-Kalbani. And he's working at a regular masjid, and he's got a very interesting story. Muhammad al-Kalbani. He's a regular guy, and he's working for the Saudi Airlines, punching people's tickets and printing out their boarding passes. That's what he's doing in his life. He's a regular guy in the eastern part of Saudi Arabia, working at an airport. And then it got into his head. He wants to be an imam. So he goes to imam school, and he starts taking his work shifts and making sure that he can do both. So he does this for 4 years. He memorizes the Quran, which is the main part of that, the imam school. And then he studies the basic fiqh that you need to study. For example, fiqh related to death, related to marriages, related to basics of buying and selling, because people are going to ask you questions. Even though he's not the speaker, he doesn't give lectures, but he does have to give Jummah khutbah. So he goes to imam school for 4 years and he graduates. And then he signs up with the Awqaf. I said, all right, we'll give you a job. They gave him a job at one of the mosques. In the Islamic countries, you can make up your own, you can have your own mosque, but the government also has tons of masajid. He ends up getting hired and he starts his life as an imam. So it's like years later, he gets his call from a Saudi official saying, pack your bags. You're moving to Mecca. You're going to be Imam al-Haramain. And it was basically just because of the color of his skin, he got the job, because it was such a superficial thing. Like, okay, the Americans have a black president. I want a black imam of the Haram. Well, it was good for him because all of a sudden he sort of leapfrogged everyone else and he got the job. He eventually, in one of the khutbahs, he broke away from the script that he's supposed to keep. He broke away from it and he said something political and he got himself fired. And now I think he's an imam somewhere in a small town masjid in Saudi Arabia. So, all that good feeling of being the Imam of Haramain, it was very short-lived. Sir Fraz Mansouri says, Jazakallah khairan, and I really appreciate your comment. Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be generous to everyone on this last day of Ramadan, and don't forget to especially take advantage of that period of time from maybe that 40-50 minutes before the adhan of Maghrib, which is always a blessed time. Take advantage of that. And may Allah ta'ala be generous with you all and grant you all what your heart desires, and place in it the qabul and the barakah and the ridwan. We don't just want what we want it with the rida. With Allah's rida, everything is good. Without his rida, with his sakhat, everything is bad. Things are not about themselves. They're about, do they come with divine blessing or not? Allah's approval or not? The dua after Yasin, no, it's not on the Safina Study website, but we could replace the file that's there with this file so that you can have Yasin and the dua afterwards. For Wird al-Latif on the safinasadi.org/wird, we can replace that one and add in it Surah Yasin and the dua after Fajr, if it's not already there. So just double check if it's not there. We'll do that. We can fix that. All right, so we have some other just positive and well-wishing comments. So hey, Bawan, Jazakallah khair, thank you very much. Awrads become part of your blood, and you can say it. And by the way, awrad get faster. The wird, when you do anything, if you were to drive for 2 hours, let's say, from where you are to the next city that's 2 hours away, if you were to continue to drive that route, you would start feeling the route getting shorter. That's true. We all know that. Awrad is no different. When you start saying Wird Latif or Ratib al-Shahir, morning and evening, you start actually feeling that it takes me 5 minutes to do it. Believe it or not, at the masjid, for example, when we pray Isha, and then there are announcements in Taraweeh. That's how it goes, right? There's Isha and there's announcements. The announcements might take 4 or 5 minutes, right? But I can say the Ratib while the announcements are going on. Like, that's how quick it just comes, and you're focusing. But the thing is, you know what's coming. Your body no longer has to, or your brain no longer has to think about what's coming, because your memory and your body have just gotten so used to what's coming. So you just say the entire word with effortlessly because it's memorized. I mean, no different than Surah Al-Fatiha. You could say it's in 5 seconds with complete khushua and paying attention, because you know what the meanings are going to be. You know what they are. So that's the thing about the beauty of these awrad, is that they actually become shorter and shorter and shorter in their, when you recite them. Even if you were to recite them like intentionally slow with full of contemplation, it'll be quick. Time will just go. You won't even know where the time went. And you'll have completed it. So that's one of the unique things about the awrad, is that you get good at it. The second, that you get good at the language. You get good at Arabic language when you keep listening to awrad. Thirdly, these awrad are garments. They're garments of protection, and they break a lot of curses that may be upon a person. Like, what do you mean by a curse? A curse may be something that we did in the past that was so bad that someone made dua against us, and we're stuck now with whatever that punishment is. So that's a curse. And some people say that the consequences, the effects of a curse can be transmitted down the generations, even if the sin isn't. So let's say a person disrespects or a poor person, humiliates a poor person. It may be announced you and your household will be miserable for the next 50 years. The awrad can break that. It can break that, because there's constant repentance in these awrad. There's constant ibad of what Allah loves to be said by his servants is in these awrad. So with that tawbah breaks curses or bad consequences, we can say. So it breaks, and that's why there's a great wisdom to this. Right? Great wisdom to awrad. The spiritual path is slow and steady. Sometimes you go fast, and sometimes you go slow. But the awrad is one of our nodes that we never leave off. All right. So G Spice, thank you for your comment. And also Samreen, we're gonna have, that's why you need to subscribe to this channel and Safina Sadi's channel, and ask for the notifications, because once we find a time, we're gonna start. And it'll just be like this. Maybe there will be the wird, maybe the ratib, if it's the afternoon time slot, and then we get going. But we will, inshallah ta'ala, find a time, and it'll be probably more like a weekly node, but we'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll try to make it happen, inshallah. At sunset, Shaitan will be released, says HS. The nafs was controlled and kept in check in Ramadan. How to stay consistent, beg for Allah's mercy like you did. Help Yusuf alayhi salam from going astray. I'll give you one secret. If you keep this, it'll be hard at first, but you'll never be able to let it go. And that is always stay upon wudu. It's one of the really difficult things in the beginning. It's very difficult. But it becomes, it's like, you become very uncomfortable if you don't have wudu. Because if you're upon wudu, the inspirations from Allah can come to you. If you're not on wudu, they may or may not come. You may miss them. Why? Because here's the thing. Many people don't understand how this works. Divine inspirations, divine goodness, messages to us. It's floating all over the world. It's floating all over the universe. Divine lights and the barakat, and rahamat, and blessings and mercy, and all these things is floating around us at all times. We're living in it. If each one of it was given a color, we wouldn't be able to see in front of us. But the question is, are we in the situation that can receive it? That's the real question. Are we in a situation that can receive these lights? And we are asking, where is the divine? Where is he in this world? And where are his signs and indicators? I don't see them. They're all there. It's us who have to purify our hearts and direct our thought somewhere specific. Then every divine blessing related to that thought and divine knowledge related to that thought will come up to you. It will reveal itself to you. But the key is you have to strengthen your iman. You never go to sleep without wudu. Do not go to sleep without wudu. Be as much as you can always on wudu. And then you'll see this is it's an amazing practice, because physically it's refreshing, especially in the warmth and the summer days, and even in the winter. Because if you take a cold water wudu in the wintertime, the weather starts seeming a little less cold, because you just wet your skin with water, which nobody likes to do. And you had no problem with that. But when you go out to the colder temperature, the colder temperature doesn't feel that cold anymore. I remember one of the weirdest things in Istanbul, you make wudu outdoors, and it was freezing out. It was January. It was the weirdest thing. But there became a really unique feeling about it. It was really unique. It's because it is so cold that when you go back to the regular environment, it doesn't seem so cold anymore, because you've changed the relativity. That's what you've done. And Istanbul, of course, is one of those places you have to use a khuf. You must. In the wintertime, if you keep wetting your feet, you might actually get sick. So that's why they call it mist. And the word khuf in their language is mist. And they make the best khufs. There's a khuf that's specially made for the winter that has like almost like fur on the inside, like sheep's head, sheep hair. Like when you see a sheep with that cozy, that fluffy whiteness, I think it's synthetic, but it's that same fluffy whiteness, like the outside of a blanket, a fuzzy type of blanket. They have that inside the khuf, so you feel extra warm. Now she asks a question, HS, about the shayateen coming out. I heard the most crazy, insane story you'd ever heard before. And I can't remember who told me. I think it was Sheikh Rami, maybe. 2 guys in England, they're driving on the last night of Ramadan to an iftar. They see an old lady walking on the street. They pick her up. They say, ma'am, where are you headed? We can drop you off. Figure they do a good deed. Now this person talks very strangely. She's all covered up in like a cloak and everything. The voice is neither male nor female. It's weird. So the person gets in the back of the car, and they're not talking much, but they're breathing pretty heavily. And they look, and they find so much hair on the bottom of her, gray hair at the bottom of her legs, like at her calf. area that it was weird. It wasn't normal. They started getting nervous, breathing funny, all covered up in a cloak, and this weird, like really thick hair around her ankles. And they're like, wow, this is really weird. So they said, where are you like to go? And she said to a certain house. So they stopped her off at that house. Now, mind you, Maghrib had already come in, right? When they stopped this and picked her up. Now that house happened to be their neighbor's house. So they get out, they do the iftar. They're a bit weirded out by this old lady. The voice is neither the voice of a man or a woman, right? And they actually talked, and they found that, she said, I was attacked, and I need to, I was attacked. I need to go recover, and I need to retaliate. They're thinking this is so weird, right? This is really just, all right, whatever. Just, there are a lot of weird people out there. Just drop her off. Next morning, after Eid, they look over the fence of their neighbor. Lo and behold, there's a fox dead in the neighbor's house, right in the backyard. Because in England, the homes are so close to each other. You can't walk. You can't even. You barely walk between the homes. Sometimes you can't even walk between the homes, side by side. So you just look over the fence, and they saw a dead fox, and the neighbor's like, "What the heck is this?" Foxes are not killed in nature; they're killed by humans. But this fox was like killed, not eaten. So who killed it? Guys, they put two and two together. You're not going to believe this. This is the weirdest story I ever heard. But it does maybe explain something about what it means a shayateen are trapped. So they told their imam. Their imam came up with a theory. Their imam said that creature that you picked up was a jinn. And in the beginning of Ramadan, that jinn was trapped in the body of a rabbit. And that rabbit was attacked by the fox, as foxes do. Except that this fox didn't realize he messed with the wrong rabbit. He messed with a rabbit that had inside of it a jinn trapped. And then as soon as the adhan of Shawwal came, that jinn was able to come out, but it still had some remnants of the rabbitness in it. And it had the fear, and now it wants to take the revenge on the fox. And then when it found that same fox and killed it. I think that theory makes perfect sense. But it's just one of the most bizarre stories you ever hear, right? They actually carried a jinn in their car because, so it gives us a little gleaning on how are they trapped? In this case, it was trapped in the body of a rabbit for a month. It could be trapped in many different ways. So, because what does it mean, Sufi, that trapped and locked? Isn't that something so ajib? So, what does it mean they're locked? Where are they chained? They're chained in nature. They're chained in things like, now, mind you, it's all speculative stories here. This is not like a knowledge of deen. We can't say that this is knowledge of deen. It's just a really interesting story. But that gives you an insight on what it means that shayateen are trapped. Shayateen are trapped. The Prophet ﷺ said, if it wasn't for the shayateen, you'd be able to look up and see the heavens. So we're going to have to work a little extra hard in dhikr to clear out these shayateen. So, no. Brother Surfraz and Brother Imran Mukhtar was also, thank you for these comments. MashaAllah. It's amazing how Allah Ta'ala brought people together. How did he bring everyone together twice a day? By taking away something, not by adding something. If you think of it, we need to bring people together. All right, let's do an event. Let's do a program. Let's have something. Right? Even like non-Muslims, let's have a concert. Let's have something to bring people together. But what did Allah do? Something so much simpler. Take away their food. No food. So what does that mean? That means we all break our fast at the same time. We're all on the same rhythm now. Worldwide, we're on the same rhythm. That rhythm is going to revolve around food. Maghrib is going to revolve around Taraweeh. So it's how Allah Ta'ala gives by taking something away. And that's why we all have a cycle of a clock cycle that's identical. Every single Muslim. You know, you're getting a phone call at Maghrib, you know it's not a Muslim calling you. It makes no sense. It's not the time to call anybody. You ever get a call during iftar time? Say, this can't be a Muslim. It must be there's someone who's a colleague that's not Muslim, or it must be one of those advertisements. Um, Interesting question here that said, what initiated these Fajr talks in the first place? That is actually a very good question. And all of it started when the lockdown happened, first happened in the middle of March last year. It happened suddenly in New Jersey and across the country. It was like swept across. Nobody was expecting. We heard about coronavirus January, February. Nobody cared. Nobody listened, except very few people. And then it was a Wednesday, and people started saying, or it was a Tuesday, I believe, and people started saying, there may be it's spreading too much in America, so we might have to close the schools. Lo and behold, I think it was Tuesday into Wednesday. That Wednesday, all the public schools announced were closing. It was literally just barely being discussed on Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and boom, shut down on when the schools closed. The governors, everyone started to pay a lot of attention. That we had meetings, the masjid leadership, and people started saying that we don't want the masajid don't want to be the cause of spreading this virus. So they came up with this collectively, all the masajid, a lot of them talked together because this is too big of a decision. We've never not had Jummah ever. This never happened. So everyone was a bit nervous about that. But we figured if we do this all as a consensus, then we won't be wrong, right? Because that's the nature in any of these these types of issues where it's a 50-50. You have to go with the Prophet ﷺ saying that what the Muslims come up with, find good, Allah, it is with Allah good. Meaning that whenever there's something that we all don't know what's going on and we have to make a judgment call, we make that judgment call on a consensus. So that was the consensus of all the masajid, and then all of them shut down. So at that point we say, oh Allah, we're all in this, so therefore whims, passions, and desires will be out because no one's going to obey someone else's whims. The only reason that there's a consensus is because it actually makes sense. I thought to myself, it was so uneasy about not the decision, but just what the heck does this mean? We're breaking all of our routines. So immediately, alhamdulillah, because of Safin side of work, we already knew how to use the technology. Today, everybody's broadcasting, right? Literally everyone and their mother knows how to broadcast. You have a 90-year-old woman, she knows how to broadcast. But at that time, nobody knew. People did not know how to broadcast. And this channel was just dead. I mean, nobody was posting anything to it. But I thought to myself, you know what? We need to be so active, so proactive in communicating, or else the people will get sort of like they'd be lost in the water. They'd be just lost in the wind. So I immediately called them. I said, listen, we got to have a community update. We can't just send an email and say Jummah's canceled. This makes no sense. It's weird. It's just an odd thing. What do you mean Jummah's canceled? It's a fard from Allah. So then that's where the first community update came about. And the reaction to that was so bizarrely positive. I didn't even think much about it, that we didn't stop. I think we didn't do it Saturday, but then we started doing Sunday. We did for a full month in a row. And then Ramadan came. And in Ramadan, I have no idea what actually possessed me to share the screen and do the awrad with Latif and Surah Yasin. I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I don't even know. And it stuck. And this year, I thought, well, I mean, no, most people are in the masajid. It's not really going to be a big deal anymore. The online stuff. This afternoon is very slow. The afternoon recitation is very slow, and the evening, like nobody watches. People go to the masjid now, but the Fajr, uh, something about it just stuck. Alhamdulillah, which is good. This year, the team in the masjid worked hard because they had to do extra work. For example, there were air purifiers, there were tents outside. So Semi Kadovic and the team at MBIC, they had to do. It wasn't the population. It wasn't a lot of people, and it wasn't food, but it was a lot of other weird things, such as making sure that the tape along this where people are going to stand is made properly, make entrance and exit is done properly, that there were tents and extra rugs put outside because some people there was an overflow very quickly because we're not crammed up, so the overflow happened very quickly on the weekends, and they had to manage all that. They had to make sure there was wax paper and masks supplied, and then the air fresheners, of course, not air fresheners, but air purifiers were all around. And that also had an impact on the electricity. So then we had the salah in the gym, because in the MBSC we have a gym in front of the musalla. So if we're going to use the gym, then the imam has to stand in the gym. What does that mean? That means extra mics in the gym. That means we can't just pray in a raw gym. We had to put up curtains and extra lighting and soften up the look of a gym. So that team, they did actually do a lot of unique work that wasn't the usual stuff that we do in Ramadan, and that was led by Semi Kadovic, who put up a great effort, in my opinion. Always the first one in and last one out, because he had to monitor all these setups and always constantly reminding the people to, and also the bathrooms, they had to be constantly polished off anytime someone used it. So what's the most common way of making dua? Good question. Begin with the praise of Allah and thanking Him, and then salawat on the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then you always make dua for your deen and your akhirah first, and then really after that there's no limit, as long as what you're asking is not sinful or hurtful to anybody, sinful for yourself or hurtful to anybody else. Then you really, the sky is the limit, and we're to ask Allah Ta'ala based on His abilities, not our abilities. You have to, and the bigger you're asked, the more there's motivation to it, because it's almost, you're asking something that it's hard to believe, but that's what you want to do. You want to have something, the feeling that something to look forward to. Why are we alive? We should have dreams and goals. And then you should always, after that, you must remember all of those suffering in the ummah by a simple phrase. Allah have mercy on all those suffering in our ummah. And then cap it off with salah on this Prophet again. Mixer Tiger saying, the Muslim resuming is another feature which distinguishes us from Christians and Jews and others, and we to appreciate resuming as our turning to and remembering. What explain to me what you mean by resuming? Is that tawbah? Aisha Mukhtar says, yes, Celebrate Mercy did a lot this year, right? Celebrate Mercy worked hard. He's one of the hardest working organizations, I would say. If someone wants to make dua, I want to be the beloved with the beloved sallallahu, how should that dua be worded? Just like that. I want to be with the beloved sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's sufficient. That's actually a sahabi. He made that dua too. Um, Thursday night maybe is a good time. We will have a dhikr Thursday, and then maybe we broadcast that, and then this, and do this. It's doable, very doable. Is Ramadan a reflection of our life? How we spent it is how we spend our lives. Ramadan is a reflection of the best of our states. Ramadan is a reflection of the best of our states, and outside of Ramadan, if we can reach maybe 50% or 70% of our state in Ramadan, Hajj as well is their best. If outside of those months we can reflect 50 or 75% of that, then it's a big achievement. And you know every Ramadan we should feel an improvement. Hamza Aziz, I came across different du'as to see the Rasulullah Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam in a dream. They're all different. What we call these mujarrabat. We and Ahl Sunnah, we believe in the permissibility of relaying what's called mujarrabat, things that are tried and tested. Mujarrabat is the idea of mujarrabat is that someone said a dua and got a positive result from it. That's how simple it is. Someone said a prayer or a dua and they were answered. And so they pass it on. They say, hey, try this. I did it. It worked for me. So we as Ahl Sunnah, we believe in that and we're allowed to try that. So any of those mujarrabats, honestly, I believe is whatever one you stick with it, you'll get success from it. So you're allowed to try all those duas. No. All right. What about doing dhikr at all times? What do we do? And at that point, if you're having your constant state of dhikr, it's going to be something different every time. You have to just go with the flow and see if Allah Ta'ala brings into your presence, for example, by way of seeing in a book a dua or a dhikr, or having something on your mind, then that's what's going to be on your tongue all the time. Right? And Allah Ta'ala loves al-abd al-lahuh. Al-lahuh means he's always knocking on the door. He's always knocking on the door. He's always knocking on the door. This is what Allah loves. Al-abd al-lahuh. And while you're walking, doing chores, it's just constant nonstop, uh, dhikr. And one of the Habaib of Yemen, he said that, "O Messenger of Allah, I always want." He saw the Prophet in a dream. He said, "I always wonder if there was like a hadith that you would say today. What would that hadith be?" Right? And the Prophet ﷺ said that he said that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has commanded the angels to count a person amongst the dhakirin as long as his beads are still in his hands. To count it amongst the dhakirin as long as the beads are still in your hands. So you never fail of having these, and they trigger your remembrance. They trigger your remembrance to have some these in your pocket, in your pants, upstairs, downstairs, wherever they are. You holding them, it triggers your dhikr. And Hamza Aziz, again, beautiful dua. Thank you. And I mean, likewise, Allah take care of your family and your friends and grant you all what you're seeking. And we have Samreen. A family member mentioned hearing Quranic recitation at their house during Ramadan. Meanwhile, no one was there reading it. She mentioned it was a voice of a man. That's easy. It could be malaika, could be the jinn. There are positive, good jinn, and sometimes they live with us. You might be a bit surprised by that, but it's true. They're called um, it's Ammar al-Buyut. They are the people. There are good jinn. Sometimes they live in people's homes. They never bother you. That's what they're good, because they don't bother you. Just in the same way that there may be, mice living in your garage in the wintertime or something like that. They don't bother you. You will never notice. But sometimes the heart is clear and it begin to be transparent to the unseen. And you start feeling, it starts hearing and seeing. Could be malaika, could be jinn, like the good jinn. And a final question, after some nice comments here from Sister Nazli and Surfraz. Mixer Tiger says, resuming our many forms of ibadah, ongoing. Yeah, so let's see, go back to the original question there. That was from Mixer. Go back to the original question. Resuming, ongoing is another feature which distinguishes us from Christians. We have ongoing, it's non-stopping. Like we have Laylatul Eid tonight. It's a big night, right? But guess what? Right after that, we have Laylatul Jum'ah. So it's non-stopping. People sometimes, brothers say, "Oh, I have the Ramadan blues." Why would you have that? The gates of heaven are never closed. You got this, and look at the times of du'a between the adhan and the iqamah, in the sujood, the du'a after salah. All of these, the Prophet ﷺ said, are the gates of heaven are open. It's as if the gates of heaven are almost always open for us, and it's easier to remember when it's not open. Allah Ta'ala, when it's enticing us, He's not going to entice us and then not grant us. That's why if you're persistent in a dua, that dua will come to you. That's persistence in it. I caught after every sajda, after every salah, between every adhan and iqamah, every night of Jummah, every Jummah, I try to find the Sa'at al-Ijabah. Hopefully it's towards the end by Maghrib. That's what most people say. Last third of the night, every night, after wudu, all the time randomly, it's almost like, how could you not receive what you're looking for? Because there's so many times where Allah's telling us and granting us the doors, gates of paradise are open. Double A says, any updates on that new community center? Yes, I have updates, but they're not ready to go public. But there is something special in the mix. You will see it soon, within maybe a month or so. It'll be completely public, and it's going to be really exciting, extremely exciting. Hamza Aziz, about dua for seeing Rasulullah that are from the mujarrabat. All right, here's a heavy one. If you can manage 15,000 salawats on the Prophet a day, I mean, that's really hard. But if you can manage that for 40 days, or Nurik As-Sari 33,000 times in 40 days, the dhikr of Nurik As-Sari. These are different. These are mujarrabat. The 15,000 is from a Syrian woman. She was a Syrian woman who used to see the Prophet every single day. And when they asked, what is your wird of salah upon him? She said, around 15,000 a day. These are mujarrabat. Now, we have to know. Now, nobody should say, oh, there's no hadith. This is all. No. We and Ahl Sunnah, all four across the madhahib, everyone, including Ibn Taymiyyah, who people think is the strictest on bid'ah. He's not actually. Ash-Shatibi is the strictest on bid'ah. The Shatibi al-Maliki, he's the strictest on bid'ah. Almost so strict that he's extreme, is rejected. We accept these mujarrabat. But the mujarrabat should never supplant the sunnah. HS says Quran ayats, they plan and Allah plans. Why is this action of Allah seems to be conditional in future sense? Isn't Allah all-knowing, past, present, future? So, oh, okay, yes. It's not that they plan, so now Allah thinks of a plan. No, it's not like that. Because nothing that happens is a new creation. Everything is created, exists already in His knowledge, and He merely manifests it. That's why the ulama say, Umurun yubdiha, matters that He manifests, wala yabtadiha, and doesn't begin them. Everything already exists in His knowledge. However, it's like this: the qadr of the world and the universe is already there. If you have a wicked intention, when you meet the qadr of the world and the universe, you will realize that your own plot was actually nothing other than a contribution to your own destruction. That's the meaning of وَيَمْكُرُونَ وَيَمْكُرُ اللَّهُ. His makr, his plot, is that your plot is already part of His plan to destroy yourself. That's what it means. That every wicked plot is merely fulfilling Allah's plan. It's also fulfilling Allah's plan. It's like this. Imagine we have a house and we all decide, let's build a new house. And then the architect comes and says, well, what you want, it can't be built on this house. You're going to need to raise this house down to the ground. Raise it to the ground, R-A-Z-E. Raise, R-A-Z-E, which means to bring it down to the ground. Just like when they do a controlled demolition. Or they bring a ball and they destroy it with a ball, or they do it with fire. There's three ways to bring down a house. Either you burn it, an intentional fire burns it down to the ground, or they get a wrecking ball and destroys it like that, or a controlled demolition. Now, simultaneously, a bunch of thieves are coming and saying, hey, man, let's rob this house. Right? And they go in, rob the house, and burn it down. Well, I was going to burn it anyway, right? And all that furniture, I was going to give it away anyway. Okay. So you did nothing except contribute to what I already wanted. Every martyr, Allah had already ordained for him to enter Jannah without hisab. But does Allah Ta'ala come send an angel down and kill him so that he could become a martyr? No. Allah finds the one who has mischief in his heart and He says, go do my work. You think you're attacking my believers and destroying Islam. No, you're doing my work. I wanted to do this anyway. I wanted to completely transform. I wanted to bring 100 million Muslims to the Western countries. How do you think it's going to happen? You think Allah Ta'ala said, okay, let's all go do da'wah to the Western countries? No. That's not how it happens. How? We'll take the military dictators, make all these Arab countries to be miserable military dictatorships, make them all inspired by socialism, to steal the land and to steal the wealth of the rich and the factories of the rich and give it to the government, steal their farmland, give it to the government, make them all socialists. So you made all the Muslims disgusted to live here anymore. Ruin the countries. By ruining the countries, they all leave. And that's exactly what happened. India and Pakistan. Why are the Pakistanis? I read a statistic is the most migrating ethnicity or nationality in the world. There's more Pakistanis living in the world, around the world, than any other nationality. It's so easy. So the answer to that is easy. The partition caused an overpopulation in Pakistan. The 1940, I think 48 partition, it caused that Pakistan is overpopulated now. So they all left. So yamkuruna yamkurullah, they plot and Allah plots. Allah's plot is that your plot does nothing other than fulfill what Allah wanted in the first place, and it will be the source of your own destruction. So that's what it means. What is the shortest salawat? Allahumma salli alayhi. That's it. That's the shortest salah. Allahumma salli alayhi. All right, folks, let's start wrapping it up. Bidnillahi ta'ala, jazakumullahu khairan. Thank you all very, very much for all of your support and your wonderful prayers and du'as. And we will, inshallah, find a time. I really like the Thursday night timing because we already have that, and it'll probably, maybe we can broadcast some of the um, Adhkar of Thursday night, and then we'll just live stream the short talk that I give after that. And maybe people could, it's usually shorter than this, but I do like Thursday night. We'll see what happens with the scheduling and with the opening and closing, because everything is still uncertain in terms of what's opening and closing, and a lot of that's out of my control because it's really just a safety matter. But regardless, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you subscribe to the Safin Sadi channel, because wherever we put it, it'll maybe on one or the other. That's where you'll find it. So again, Jazakumullah khairan. Eid Mubarak to everybody. Hope you have a blessed Eid, and don't miss out on tonight, one of the 4 sacred nights of the year, Laylatul Eid. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wasallam. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Salamun al mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Nastaghfiruk wa natubu ilayk. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
سنين مرت مني نغيب زمننا وما في العيب سوانا ونهجو ذا الزمان بغير ذنب ولو نطق الزمان لنا هجانا ربي أنت القريب على محاري من بعيد يا ربي بطشهم شديد آذوني ربي أنت القريب على محاري من بعيد يا ربي بطشهم شديد آذوني Allah, you know what I need when I'm praying down on my knees. I'm begging you, Allah, please take me to heaven. No love, no friend, no one to lean on. You would have found me there alone. You're my only strength I lean on. Lost, now I'm found, and freedom we live for. I'm so thankful to be here now. My only fear is to lose control. ربي أنت القريب على محاري من بعيد يا ربي بطشهم شديد ربي أنت القريب على محاري من بعيد يا ربي بطشهم شديد Allah, you know what I know. You can feel it down in my soul. Help me to reach my goal. Take me to heaven. رحماك ملأ النور سماك لا شريك لك يا رحمن Feel it down in my soul. Help me to reach my goal.